Hey, before co-host and my friend Stoy takes it away to intro this episode of PWNA, wanted to tell you that Stoy also treats us to something later on in the week when he puts on his minister hat in real time. His two guests, Darian and Jairi, this couple asked him to officiate their wedding. Psst, one of those youngsters who's getting married is Stoy's kid. So I loved hearing for the first time one of my going all the way back to fourth grade pals, Stoy Prelo's son, Darian, and the young lady, Jairi, who is officially off the singles market. You'll hear Stoy give them the talk on this podcast about the birds and the bees. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's time, right? No, the talk, which was more or less questions Stoy felt important to get into before he officially accepted their request to officiate the wedding. They all three agreed to let that record switch stay on, and we'll release this conversation Thursday. All right, everyone. Stoy, take it away on this one.
Now, Joey kicks off this episode with a beautiful prayer. So that got me in the mood to share some of my lyrics with you guys. So, without further ado, I call this Nothing to Do With Me. Climbing out of that coffin, choking and coughing, only happens when I've forgotten my calling. Say I'm stubborn and stiff, place he wants me to soften. Shortly after, reminded why God is awesome. Yeah, I moved a few inches, the miles I've fallen. Grounds my perspective to hear when he's talking. Give me one more chance. It's uttered too often. Know I got a father out here acting like orphan. Annie up at once when it's clear that you lost him. Turning a prophet, turned me into a prophet from the wealth that's gained through his love, his knowledge. Powered to change any heart that's bothered. Nothing to do with me, it's the Lord's involvement. So my selfish release increased the installment. The weak will call him, elite will call him. In so many ways, I'll complete is common. Ooh, we're one. Less of you, more of him. Let's go. Welcome. Now, in this episode, we got a unique blend for you guys. We got Joey, Liz, Amy, and Ellen. And they're going to take a deep dive into the discussion about the Olympics opening day ceremony, focusing on the Christian community and their response to the event. They will also speak on the LGBTQ community. The dialogue is rich, and the perspectives shared open up our platform for listeners to reflect on their own beliefs and biases. Now, Ellen shares an update of her spiritual journey and plans to hire a medium for her birthday. Amy expressed skepticism about mediums and the spiritual realm altogether. Liz shifts the tone when she shares an incredibly moving experience where she believes her late husband Josh visited their daughter shortly after his passing. Now, her touching and very moving story adds depth to the discussion, highlighting for me that there's light and dark sides to spirituality. Now, y'all know we have that unique blend of voices and perspectives, but we also invite you listeners to engage with us and reflect on your own experiences with faith, community, and spirituality. So I pulled a few clips to highlight what I felt from the episode altogether. Ellen, talk to me.
If there really was a concern about people like you going to hell, if that's really their concern, and that's supposed to make them sad, right? That's supposed to break their heart because they believe hell is real and that they love you, right?
Watch how
they're
she
supposed
flipped this.
They love you,
Watch how
but
she
you're
flipped it.
going to hell. So that should wreck them.
Yeah.
That should totally wreck them. And if it did wreck them, their strategy would be totally different. But
Great
because
point.
it's unkind and because it is self-righteous, it proves either, well, it proves that they don't give a shit that you're going to hell.
Okay, Amy.
I was so proud of myself. I was like, I know I've gotten together the most times. So they're like, if you got together and said John 3:16 with a fellow believer, like one time, stand up. Stay standing if it was like 10 times, 8 times, whatever.
So weird.
And I know. So there's 2 of us left standing. And I was like,
okay,
look at me, like so many times. And so then I'm on blast because the director said like, okay, how many people did you pray that they would be saved? And I was like, like that was never my concern to figure out who was unsaved and to try to like pray to like turn them on our side. All I cared about is like, look at me, I met the most times. And I was like, that was so impressive. Like as a young kid, like I must have been like between 10 and 12 to be like, whoa, like my whole outlook was selfish and it was all about look at me instead of like who needs Christ.
Nice. Now, Liz summed the entire episode up for me once she said this.
But it can't be a I love you but situation. It's got to be a, hey, that's an interesting viewpoint. I'm not any closer to Jesus than you are. He loves us all the same. I kind of interpreted it this way, but we're not saying I'm right or you're wrong or anything like that,
Wow.
I demanded, pleaded, called God on promises and was like, you have to show up or I am done. And he did.
That's something to really think about. What does it mean that the God of the universe loves me?
Are we saying that our God is bigger than their God or what?
Man, you got my mind going crazy right now.
I just think that is evangelical bullshit.
And I don't fit in their box anymore. So feeling rejected from the church makes me feel far away from God.
If I'm living out the love of God, love of the divine, then in some ways we're unoffendable.
It's wrong to marginalize anybody for any reason.
Sometimes we can just have some things about our perspective that's off until we encounter someone who can challenge our thoughts, have conversations with us, and we just continue to grow and evolve.
I'm with you there. I like that.
That sounded like womp, 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 womp to Rob.
I'm a hardcore gospel lover. I do love the gospel. I just think we get it wrong.
Girl, I was so highly medicated. I don't even know if you Oh, God, my people.
Would it weird you guys out? This literally popped in my head yesterday, and I couldn't shake it. Would it weird you guys out if I prayed real quick before this?
No.
Okay. I didn't think it would, but Lord, we give you this conversation, and I pray that as we talk through things that are frustrating and even toxic and things that break our hearts, help our love not to go hidden. Lord, let it be possible for our love to speak more volumes than anything else that we talk about, as we also speak what we feel to be important truths that also need to be communicated clearly. But we just would love it if you could give us a sense of your spirit and your love, and that would just kind of bathe everything that we say and just be a part of this conversation. Personally, I would love for people to listen to this episode, the very people that we're talking about, and not feel attacked, but maybe feel like, wow, these people's hearts are broken. What am I missing? Like, what's going on? So I pray that maybe you would just use this in that way. But for sure, please keep us from our hearts being bitter and cold and hard. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. That was a good prayer, Joey.
Oh,
it's like you.
That was
it's like
good.
You might know Jesus.
Like you've done it before. No, I like it when people pray and it doesn't sound like Christianese where they say all the phrases and all that stuff. Like, I like it when they actually are just talking to God, because then I don't feel weird. But if I do get weirded out now when I hear people, you know, I don't know what I was watching the other day. I'm trying to remember now. And they prayed before whatever it was. Dang it. I'm like Dory, I swear to God. But I was like thinking to myself, man, like I probably sounded like that. And then also, I don't even know if that person knew what they were saying. Kind of like it was weird. And I also acknowledged the fact that I sounded like that because I didn't know what to say. So I said the things that I heard other people say, even though I'm not saying that person doesn't love Jesus, because I loved Jesus and I sounded Christianese too. But it's like we just really mimic whatever we hear or say. People hear or say, you know?
Mm-hmm. Ellen, you just missed opening prayer. We haven't opened the podcast in prayer in years, and you missed it.
That's fine.
Hey, before we move into the bulk of the conversation, we've got to get an update on you communing with dead people.
Oh, yeah. You know,
any progress there?
No progress there.
As Amy is losing her mind. You didn't hear her talk about this in another episode, Amy? Did you miss that one?
I did, but I thought maybe it was like kidding. Like,
listen,
no, she's talking to dead people.
I'm at a point now where I really want to believe it, but I have not had any experiences myself.
Yeah.
But I'm still interested in all the content, and I plan on hiring a medium for my birthday this year.
Well. How does Cole feel? Is Cole as excited, or is he a little apprehensive or neutral, or what?
Cole, he's the most unbothered person I know. He's never been excited about anything in his life. He's all for it. He's all for it. He's not into it. He doesn't. I think he's thinks it's kind of silly, but he's all for it. When I say that he's the only person I've ever met who no one else has ever had like beef with, or anyone in the world. No one has had beef with him except for me. He's just an easygoing, nice guy. Boring.
Yep. Well, your hair looks nice, Ellen.
Your hair looks
I just spent $200 on a haircut today, so I hope it looks nice.
I didn't spend quite that much. I did get mine cut right before this, though, but you can't tell because I got on the headset.
I miss you.
Looks nice, though.
Thanks. Ellen, you look so cute, bro.
I do?
All right, so I want to ask you guys. So, Ellen, when's your birthday? By the way, how long do we have to wait for you to?
Early October.
Awesome. I think that'll give us time between now and then to bring some. Amy, we need to bring my brother and David Sherderwan on, our Dungeons and Dragon guy. And Ellen, would you totally be fine with us having an episode basically talking behind your back, but you will be able to listen to it? Because I want to bring some people that are very sensitive about this stuff. I don't know what I think about it. I'm just super curious.
That's all.
But
I'm not a Wiccan.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably are. All right, so this...
I am going to record it, though, by the way. If I do meet with a medium, I'm having it recorded.
I feel like the spirits would know that, and they wouldn't come to you.
No, okay. Most mediums record their stuff, so I think it's fine.
Yeah, because it's not...
They do?
Amy, you're worried about Ellen.
I mean, I'm
correct?
not... Well, yeah. I don't think it's a... Yeah, I mean... yeah, I don't think it's a good idea, but, I mean, I'm not...
Are you worried that some sort of dark presence is going to possess me?
No, I don't worry about that. I just think that
oppress
you.
No,
I don't think like she's going to get, nothing like that. I just think that,
See, I'm not fully convinced. I'm not freaked out about this, and I'm not scared about it, but there's also not something in me that says 100%, no doubt about it, this is perfectly harmless. I don't have that in me.
I've got a little apprehension as well. But I need to know if it's real or not.
It's not. That's the thing, is it's so not.
But Amy, I've now spoken to so many people who I know personally who have had experience. I can't explain it away anymore.
Yeah, and there are a lot of accounts out there. I would like to, I plan on, I think on Bad Christian, we talked to a guy that wrote a book on people with near-death experiences and the stuff that they talked about.
Yeah,
There's
too many
no
things
way.
correlate for me. I need to have my own experience. By the way, I'm talking.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're going to get it just because you want it, though. I think it's just something that sometimes happens for people, and I don't even know if it's on purpose.
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like with it's like a near-death experience. I don't know that they knew that. Well, of course, they didn't know that was going to happen, but they weren't trying to make that happen, and it's something that just happened for them if that was like their account. So I don't think that you can just produce it or make it happen. But yeah, I think I've heard too many people with their stories or read about it. I had one of my own that I just am like, there's no way that somebody would have been able to know that or anything. So it's just interesting to me. I don't know what it necessarily means and what it represents or what it is. I have no clue. I don't, but I'm also okay with not knowing. If that makes sense. I don't need to know if it's okay or if it's not, if it's holy, if it's not. I just don't feel like a need to know that stuff. I just know that I experience it.
Have you and Hannah Ray talked about that encounter yet? No, she's not aware of it?
Not that I can remember. I do have conversations with people, though, is what I'm told, and then I forget I've had them.
And before you proceed, it's been told on this podcast before, but I also am well aware that some people don't listen to every 300 and however many episodes there are out there. So the skinny of it is within a week of Liz's husband, Joshua's passing, Hannah Ray was not even 2 yet. And as Liz and her best buddy, who was in town to be with Liz, during this intense time of grief, when they were going past the area, the exact spot where Joshua's life was ended in a tragic car accident, Hannah Ray, this 1.5-year-old, erupts in the backseat of the car saying, "Daddy, daddy, daddy, daddy," like she had just seen her dad. And Liz, I think you said
I
that
still
you turned
get
to
chills.
Yeah, me too. I think you said that you turned to your friend and you're like, "Did I just hear what I just heard?" And your friend said, "Yes."
You
and
heard
so
that.
For me, there's no, I mean, I'm 99% sure whatever exists on the other side, when heaven and earth meet and it's the kingdom of God, that's my belief. I really think Joshua is going to give us a big smile and say, "Yeah, of course that was me. I had to see my girl," But yeah. You'll have to tell me when you tell Hannah Ray.
Okay. I'm not like against telling her. I personally have a hard time letting myself enter into that space. Like I can talk about it and it's like a different layer. Like I don't really think about it when I talk about it in situations like this. So I can talk about it without crying. But if I'm actually talking to somebody about it to like tell them my feelings or something, if I was to like sit with her, I would just be a freaking mess. Like I know that, and I hate that because I don't want them to see me a mess. I feel like I have to be strong for them and not let them see me be like crying. Not that they can't see me crying, but like lose my shit. I don't know. I hate that they could see that or experience that. But I also know that that's just human nature. But it's one of those conversations that I don't think it would be very easy. I mean, she had, I have like Bark on her phone, so I get screenshots of things that might be flagged. And I mean, I get flagged all the time for drugs because I'm like, come take your, melatonin or whatever. So it flags me all the time. But it flagged her talking to a friend, and she doesn't even know this because I don't tell her necessarily when I see things. But
and we're on a podcast, right?
Yeah, she's not going to listen to it. She had like this conversation with her friend saying that like she wishes, that her dad was alive because she knows that they would be going to every art museum that they could find, and they would, anywhere they traveled, they would be going to art museums and talking about art and doing this and doing that. And it was like a little bit of insight into like what she's going through and what she's thinking and what she feels about it. it was just interesting to have that little bit of insight on what she tells her friends and what she's thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Liz, I was telling someone this, and I haven't told you this yet, just because we haven't had a chance to really,
we're on a podcast, right?
Yeah. Do Amy and I need to step out, or?
No, you're good. You're good. We're gonna get into this here, quick. But when you told me about y'all's trip to see his family and how she fell apart, like that was, very emotional for me to hear. But the light bulb just went off too, and I was like, oh, holy shit! Like Hannah Ray, this little baby that I've been in her life, that her whole time seeing her grow up, she's at an age now to where she's thinking complex thoughts about her life. Like she's not a kid anymore where that stuff is just beyond her. She is now at an age to where she is working through it all. And they just all grew up so fast. Like, and Hannah Ray, now the age that she's at, it just like a light bulb went off. I was like, oh yeah, she's toiling with all of this now.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I felt when I saw that little screenshot. I was like, oh man,
Was that hard for you?
Yeah, I felt bad that I'm not providing something. I think it's good for her to think about something that she could have had with her dad. That's healthy, that's good, and that's sweet, that's what she thinks would have happened. But I also can't help but wonder, what am I not providing for her, or, facilitating for her to be able to experience that, like even have her go with Priscilla to an art museum. Priscilla will go anywhere. Or like my friend who's an art teacher, like, should I like ask her like, hey, next time you go to a museum, could Hannah and I go, So it's just kind of a little bit of a reminder that, Liz, you might need to, besides just telling her drawings are fantastic, you might need to see what she needs.
All right. I could talk about Hannah Ray forever. So this, I'm going to tell you three that I really am going to unpack some thoughts here. I wrote them down because there's a lot I want to say, and then I've got questions for y'all. So I'm going to kind of say my piece right now, and hopefully y'all can hang in with me. It'll probably take me 2 or 3 minutes. So this was birthed out of episode 36, and I'll ask for grace, as I believe some hurt may come out in this conversation, but I want to lay a foundation of the sorts of stuff I've been thinking, and then ask you guys some questions. It feels like, and Amy, I know you've kind of put it in a nutshell too, because you and I have been texting back and forth. I think you've been even way more burdened than me by some of this stuff, but it feels like many Christian brothers and sisters are fighting against having to really love people. Like I'm going to grasp for any possible excuse I can not to love. So I posted something on Facebook. Here's what it said. To me, this is ABCs of Christianity. This is not controversial. I said, I've made some of the biggest screw ups of all, so I totally understand the whole he who is without sin cast the first stone concept and how it plays out here. But man, it's so hard to see the church miss the mark on the very basics of the Christian faith. To be honest, I think it's debatable whether this is Christian persecution in the first place. Obviously, this is about the opening ceremony. But wouldn't it be so refreshing to see brothers and sisters all over the world actually loving their neighbors and not having such a short fuse with stuff that rubs them the wrong way? Is it fear? Have we not been perfected by love? Let's bring the WWJD bracelets back, and then, a shout out about the episode. So I'm an Enneagram 9, always seeing different positions. But when it comes to the church and what love looks like, I just don't think there's a lot of wiggle room. So it'd be one thing if a lot of these, because I'm going to tell you real quick some of the comments on this post. It'd be one thing if people said, no, the best way that we can love right now is to stand firm and fight. But these people aren't even entertaining love as even a possibility or even something they need to look at. They're just saying, no, we're going to fight. Not even talking about love. So one person said, I disagree with you, but agree with the sentiment. It's not debatable when the creators have already spoken to their intention and what this was. This is a battle. This is what this a guy that I love, a Christian friend of mine. No, the battle ended, and was one at the cross. I'm like, what faith are we talking about? You said this is a battle. Well, first of all, I hope that you
For what?
mean,
What are they battling?
exactly. And I hope you mean against, not against flesh and blood, because that's, if you want to go by the Bible, our battle isn't against flesh and blood. All right. Another person said Jesus would not have turned the other cheek on this one. So some of these people I'm talking about, I love, and I would even say good people. They've done I know some of the really, really good things that they have done for other people. They are putting a lot of goodness out in the world. But just like everybody, there's beauty in all people, image bearers of God, but that's not the topic for tonight. Right now, it's what these beautiful, beautiful people are doing. And I see them as literally peeing on the gospel. Like, I think they're unknowingly, these sorts of sentiments of fighting against love represents probably the most significant poisoning the church is doing right now. And I'm just like, if it's not bathed in love, I know that sounds cheesy, but that's just what's coming out, then, and you're a Christian, claiming to be a Christian, everything else you say is a clanging cymbal right now. Like, I think that phrase from Paul is so relevant right now. If you're a Christian in 2024 and the stuff that you put out there doesn't sound merciful and loving to all people, to me, right now, you're a clanging cymbal. I can't listen to it. I just can't listen to it. And then it gets even worse, you three. The people that they're frustrated with, they think that they're going to hell. So they're thinking these people are going to hell and they disgust me and they repel me and I don't want anything to do with them. So
and they wonder why people don't want to go to church.
Exactly. So God wouldn't turn the other cheek on this one. And yet, when Jesus was on the cross, he says, Father, forgive them. They just killed the man. He knows he's dying. And yet Christians are upset about how people on TV are dressed.
We've just missed the mark. We have missed the mark.
The idea that something that offended you about a drag show would be the one thing that Jesus would not tolerate. But everything else, genocide, all the sexual abuse, that's fine. But I swear to God, you get on national television and you paint your body blue. That's it.
And Ellen, you're so right. Like, there's tons of outlash from within the church when, a pastor does something really despicable and tries to hide it and all that stuff, but not like this. Not a Unitarian, like everybody is together in this. And, I need to be careful when I say that, because obviously in a church like Seacoast, that post, is very encouraging to see the many people at Seacoast who were not frustrated by it and did like it, but it's a hodgepodge. You also have some, completely the opposite. But I'm two more things to say, and then I've got some questions for y'all. The irony, y'all, of Christ's followers arguing against love, claiming to be disciples, and I believe, they are, depending on what your definition of that is, but they're missing something so big. It's like you had a really bad earthly teacher, or you're a horrible listener, or you're just not wanting to accept how radical of a faith you claim as your own. It's like you don't want to acknowledge it. So I do, and I wonder if we'll part, because I think right now the four of us are on the same page, but I wonder if we'll part ways here. I don't think we will, but I do have a lot of understanding and patience, as I was wired up like a lot of these people. And in my heyday, if this sort of opportunities on social media existed, I probably would have said some things that I would now be very ashamed of. But I feel like I'm at a stage in life to where I'm a big time peacekeeper, but I cannot back down from keeping radical love connected to the gospel. And right now, more than ever, if you're a Christian and you are not with me in this, you're truly clanging a cymbal.
I think it's hard for anybody, and I get it, because I feel like I experienced that as well. It's hard for anybody to believe that anything could be other than what they were told their entire life. It's hard.
And I think also this is really, it just boils down to, like, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Everything boils down to either you agree with me and you're right and good for you, or
it's so
it really
self-righteous.
isn't. It's like, listen, take a minute and slow down before you go and say craziness on the Facebook and on the Instagrams and all the things. It's like, listen, just take a minute to say, like, if you were disturbed by the whole shenanigans, then your heart should be so broken that you get on your knees and pray for those people. What good does it do to get on social media and be like, this is why we're under attack? We're not under attack. No one is taking Americans and putting them against a wall and shooting them for their faith. It's not happening. That happens other places. It doesn't happen here. So if the worst thing that Americans can be crying about on Facebook is the freaking opening of the Olympics, just widen your lens, guys. Widen your lens.
And you know what? None of them
They
did.
like to focus on the weirdest things. Like, why are you focusing on that?
None of them ended up boycotting like they all said they were going to do, because turns out they all watched the female boxers.
Nice one, Ellen.
That enraged me. Enraged me. Just because you think she's strong and ugly means she's not a woman.
Well, they've really messed.
Well, I don't know if y'all. On that. So Matt really clarified that situation for me, because I do think that there's a discussion to be had when it comes to trans athletes, such as what Martina Navratilova got blasted for being critical of just not even thinking about it, and she was blasted for even bringing it up. But I do think if there's an unfair advantage, it needs to be looked at. But what's
not
crazy
publicly.
about that.
Not pointing out one person.
Sure. But this story, it wasn't even a trans person. It was an intersex person who had to choose a gender, so it wasn't even what people said that it actually was. Y'all, like, is when someone, so I've done a pretty good job training myself not to get into comments and stuff, because I just know it kind of goes nowhere. But I also hoped that maybe my friend Amy would carry on the conversation and maybe try to continue.
She had COVID.
Listen, I was on the Facebook like, now what?
Here's what I don't understand. When Amy says something about the radical love of Jesus and the sort of things that we were all taught and we all preach, why isn't their reaction, oh my gosh, Amy, you are so right? Like, I didn't even know what I was thinking. I just got so carried away with something I'm not used to. Thank you for the reminder. Why isn't that everybody's response? Because it seems like it's so obvious. And that's
Amy,
I responded for hours.
I didn't look at the comments. I read like the first couple, and then I was like, this is going to put me in a headspace where I feel very frustrated and at some people that I probably love.
I can't wait to dig in, because I didn't even know that this whole battle was.
I want to read it now that I know
it's
Amy
not
was
that.
responding.
Amy, I think we're maybe hyping it up too much. I don't think it's that
went
dramatic,
back and forth, like, someone would post and I would reply. And then like several hours later, they would reply. And several hours later, I would reply. So there's maybe like 5 or 6 back and forth. But the thing that I think is so important is that, sometimes I can go off the deep end and just, rage takes over it. And it wasn't that case at all with this. It was frustration and it was brokenheartedness, because this person has influence with a lot of people. And I just want to be like, the first comment I made was like, you've missed the point of this whole conversation. Like, you're talking over here about end times, and that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about, and they were like, oh, well, love isn't mushy. And I'm like, you're right. It's not. It's so hard. It is so hard to not keep a record of wrongs, to be patient, to show kindness, to live at peace with others as much as it depends upon you. All of these tenets of our very faith, it is hard to love your enemy. That's hard. It's not mushy. It's not attractive. It's not beautiful.
The girl's going off.
It made me so upset because, and not in it wasn't an argumentative, like I'm trying to best you in any way, shape or form, or
No,
ugliness.
it didn't come
It
across
wasn't like
that
that
way
at all.
either.
But it's like, are we like, you can't at all say in any of this, I do agree with you. We have to love people. Not one time.
Because pride.
Yeah.
I think that means they've given in, I think, and
It's
thrown
really
the
important
towel.
for those people that they identify with a group, and they identify with a big group, and they've got lots of people supporting their ideas, and it feels good to have like group rage and to be a part of a club and to be included. And I was so conservative for so long that I know exactly how those people feel, and I know that there is no reason to argue. It's not going to help. It's not going to help until they reach out and ask questions.
You have to have life experiences to have your mind start to like mold into a different, thought process.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is I've thought about this recently. I have heard pastors mock love. Like basically, oh, the hippie, we gotta love everybody sort of Jesus hogwash, sort of stuff like that. And I'm like,
kind of what he said.
It's kind of what he said.
Well, Mark Driscoll used to always talk about it being like tough love. He would mask his asshole conservative right-wing opinions and call it tough love, because that's what, when you love your child, sometimes you have to, put restrictions out there, and you can't let them do everything that they want to do. And that is tough love, and that's what we're doing.
And do you know what my response to that exact comment on this post was? It's totally different when I have a responsibility to my child and a relationship with. That's one thing. But I don't have that intimate relationship with the public at large. So I don't have that permission to try to correct the whole world. That's not my position with you. My position to you is to show Jesus, period.
You should have said, I'm just out here looking for some fruits of the spirit, and I ain't finding none.
Right. I'm like, anybody got a microscope? Anybody.
Ellen, man, for somebody from Seattle, you nailed the Southern girl.
My whole
Holy
family's
cow.
Southern.
I mean,
I'm first generation.
Hey, what do y'all think about this? And I'm, I guess, particularly interested in what Liz would say, given that, you would be in the LGBTQ community. I don't think, and we've talked about this before, but I don't know if I've said it this way. I don't really think what we're super frustrated with right now, I don't think people with other views I don't even think that's the problem. I think it's the unwillingness to learn, the unwillingness to be humble in heart and love our fellow human being and like really love them. Like I can personally live with other people having different beliefs, especially if they feel convicted about their beliefs. But when it comes to a Christian who says, I follow Jesus, but I'm not even trying to love, that's where I think we have a big problem. But how would you think of that, Liz, if when I say I don't think people with other views, I don't think that's the problem?
Yeah, no, I mean, the Bible is something that is interpreted so many different ways depending on who you are, how you grew up. We are always encountering people that have a different view. Like Amy believes that there's a hell and you're actually going to burn. I don't personally think that, but there's nothing that makes Amy or I feel like if I go to church, I'm going to be exploited for the fact that I don't believe you're going to burn in hell, that people are not focused so much on that one thing. And it's not a sin, but just an interpretation or an opinion or a belief on what you think is correct. That one thing just gets exploited so much. It's so weird. I really do think it's weird, but I acknowledge that people are gonna think differently, but it can't be a I love you but situation. It's gotta be a hey, that's an interesting viewpoint. I'm not any closer to Jesus than you are. He loves us all the same. I kind of interpreted it this way, but we're not saying I'm right or you're wrong or anything like that, But that conversation doesn't happen.
If there really was a concern
often
about people like you going to hell, if that's really their concern, and that's supposed to make them sad, right? That's supposed to break their heart because they believe hell is real and that they love you, right? because they're supposed to. They love you, but you're going to hell. So that should wreck them. That should totally wreck them. And if it did wreck them, their strategy would be totally different. But because it's unkind and because it is self-righteous, it proves that it proves that they don't give a shit that you're going to hell.
Man, that's tough to hear, but so true.
So, one of the most transformative situations for me ever with that mindset happened when I was at camp growing up. So at camp, it was at Bonnie Doon. Do y'all know Bonnie Doon? I love that place so much. So we were there, and I went every year, and they were like, okay, we're gonna assign some of you as angels and some of you as demons, and then there's like one person who's gonna be like God that you would like pray to. And if you find out someone, I guess they weren't demons, they were like unsaved, I guess. So you had like believers and unbelievers kind of. But it was like, if you know that someone is unsaved, then you would like pray for them and like, basically like, let's see throughout the week if you get caught, how can you like reach people for Christ basically? Also, how many times can you get together where there's two or more of you and say John 3:16 without getting caught? So like people would wander off together and people like run up behind them and be like, I want to catch you doing this. And like people were all like trying to be on the down low, like saying John 3:16 together. And people were all like the whole week trying to figure out like who's what, blah, blah, blah. And so I was so proud of myself. I was like, I know I've gotten together the most times. So they're like, if you got together and said John 3:16 with a fellow believer, like one time, stand up, stay standing. If it was like 10 times, 8 times, whatever.
So weird.
And I know. So there's 2 of us left standing. And I was like, look at me, like so many times. And so then I'm on blast because the director said like, okay, how many people did you pray that they would be saved? And I was like, oh. Like that was never my concern to figure out who was unsaved and to try to like pray to like turn them on our side. All I cared about is like, look at me, I met the most times. And I was like, that was so impressive. Like as a young kid, like I must have been like between 10 and 12 to be like, whoa, like my whole outlook was selfish and it was all about look at me instead of like who needs Christ. And that has always stuck with me. Like, it isn't about me. It's about you. You know what I mean? Like, once we know Christ, like, why would we not want to, if we're ambassadors for him, like, why wouldn't we want to represent him well? Like, why wouldn't we want to put our best foot forward and reach out to people instead of battle them? Like, the battle isn't here. It's spiritual. It has nothing to do with, Liz or Ellen or you or me. Like, this is this whole spiritual thing. So let God do his business. Like, he doesn't need us to defend him. He doesn't need us to pick up a sword. He needs us to love other people well.
Yeah, I've thought about God sometimes being like, what in the world, guys? Calm down. Like, I don't need your... I'm fine. You don't have to be upset on my account. And by the way, I really love all those people that are making you mad.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking
like,
about? I've seen a couple TikToks about this lately, and maybe we've touched on it before, but I'm like solid in this belief now that the revival that we've all been praying for decades and decades, I mean, there's whole conferences and bullshit around it. I think that the deconstruction movement, if you can call it a movement, it seems like the last decade has been pretty powerful. I think that might be the revival, because I think that there are enough people who are getting rid of all the stuff we're talking about, and
purging,
they are truly, and however they are in their politics, whether they believe in a creator God or not anymore, whatever, the point is they're loving people well now, because the church wasn't. The church was never teaching them to actually love people. They detoxed all of that. And I really believe now that the revival that we've all been renting circus tents for, is happening in the deconstruction movement, because people are really actually figuring out how to love people well.
100% agree. 100% agree, because the stuff that would prevent that from happening is being purged, because people are like, this isn't working and this doesn't feel like radical love like this. And I think that it will take for this revival that you're talking about, I think it will include in this, for someone who believes that Jesus will eventually save everybody, this wouldn't be bothersome for me, but I think it will entail a sizable chunk of this younger generation kind of not having faith at all. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just like it is happening. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you look at that age group and they are going away from the church. And I think that it all could be a part of God's grace, to bring back the purity
it
of
could
just
start
love.
all over again organically in a really beautiful way. And the conservative evangelical church of today could be like in the history books.
I get real upset too, like when we do say things to a body of believers and say, because I'm in that boat, like we're believers. Okay, I'm in this boat with you, whether we're under the same title, whether I want to be or not. So, like when we say things like, we need to be more loving, and the response from people is, it's not all that mushy hippie blah blah blah, and it's like, I didn't say that. Your post didn't say that. Like, no one's talking about that. Like, I'm not talking about Valentine's Day, okay? I'm not trying to get you a bouquet of flowers, a balloon, and some candy. I am talking about grace based on the most selfless, loving thing that Christ could do to reconcile us to Him. The love that we're called to give is hard. It's not some easy, mushy, wonderful thing. Pray for my enemies? Are you kidding me? That's hard. To love the person that isn't easily lovable. It's easy to be like, I love my kids, I love my family, I like my small group. Like, that's easy. But give me the person that gets on my daggum nerves every day at work and then be like, love them. And I'm like, it's not about mushy, guys.
Yeah. I asked you, Amy, what you thought of, some of these people that you knew and or didn't know. You're just reading what they're saying. What do you think would happen if they were in an environment, let's just say I have a handful of people coming over and they're there, and then there's a trans person there. Like, I seriously wonder, with the heart that they're demonstrating on social media by their words, what would they do if they were in physical proximity in a social situation? What would they do?
I feel like they would probably leave. They don't want to interact with that. Obviously, because they don't want to learn anything new. They're not willing to understand something that's different from them. And I think that they would probably, once they found that out, they'd be like, this isn't the place for me.
Or
yeah,
and they would
so
probably
I'm
leave.
going to go on a limb, and Amy, Liz, you may not have seen the post yet unless you've looked at it since we've been talking. But Amy, I'm going to go on a limb and say the people that were the most vocal, I think it would be uncomfortable for them, but I actually do have faith that if they were in that situation, it's kind of forcing them. But I do think if you squeeze them in that sort of situation, the people I'm thinking of, they would interact and love. I'm not saying that they would be comfortable and at ease, but I would. I
feel like there's two camps of people though in this group that you're talking about. Because if we had like a meet a trans person event where like a conservative, like
I'm not talking about a
no,
meet
but
a
I'm saying
event.
this is a hypothetical, okay? This is hypothetical. And church, it was like, okay, everybody from our church, like, we can go to this event. There would be the people that want to, like, actually learn more about it and maybe get to know someone, God forbid. But I feel like there's a whole other group of people that just feel very, very comfortable in their stewing. Like, they already know that it's wrong and they don't want any part of it. Like we've talked before, it is almost like a it's like they don't want to learn. But something that I think we talked about last time we recorded, Joey, was when they're in an environment that we've all been in, where you're not allowed to seek out more information, more data, because if you do, then that's dangerous, sinful, scary. But there's nowhere else in our whole life that we don't want more data to make decisions, right? Like all of us in any facet of our life, we want to know the most information so that we can make a choice.
But like there's a lot of people that are like, I'm not even engaging in this. I'm not going to, like, I know everything there is to know about it. It's wrong. It's an abomination, like, done. I don't want you to cloud my thinking. I don't want to open that door. I'm not even this, that, or the other. I don't agree with Joey. I definitely think, Joey, if you had a hangout at your house and there was a trans person and that person that we're thinking of was present, one, I feel like they'd be offended. Two, I think that they would not engage that person
if they knew they were trans. That's
if they knew.
Really good part.
Bring them on the podcast.
And then
Bring
if they had to,
I need to see who these people are. Do I know them?
It's the one I texted you about, Liz.
I would love to sprinkle in some very well passed.
What, Ellen? I'm
I was
sorry.
just gonna say I love telling people when these conservative women, especially, get all bent out of shape about how trans people should not be allowed in whatever bathroom. I love telling them that there is a 100% chance that you've been in a women's bathroom with a trans person and you didn't know, and they just had to pee and everyone survived.
Yeah, and trans.
I love Sandy Stafford.
I know, she was so sweet, and that's the one person who.
And she's in a different generation. She's not in Gen X. So that's even cooler.
And she is so kind. And that's one of the things, like, I was very encouraged because I was trying to speak from my heart and be honest and engage in a positive way. Like, it wasn't, snippy or ugly at all, but I kept saying, like, aren't you missing the point? Like, you're still missing the point. Like, you missed it again. And I love that she was like,
right.
Hey, Amy, thanks for speaking. Like, I can't articulate like that. And you did a good job. And it made me feel like if for nothing else, there's one other person out there that was like, that didn't feel alone, you know?
Amy. Yeah, for sure. What you're saying as far as you're missing the point, it's like if you're arguing and pushing back, which you obviously are because your whole tone and everything you're saying, you're pushing back. Only thing you're pushing back on is loving others, because that's the only damn thing I'm saying. So you need to just go ahead and type, stop this loving others bullshit, because that's
I think
all I'm
if
saying.
they love others, that I think they don't understand. I think if they love others, that they somehow have it in their brain that means I agree with them, and then I am okay with that. And that's okay if at first that's how you feel. It's like, I love you and I'm going to love you and I'm going to pray for you. I don't understand, but I'm still going to love you. That takes a different kind of person than somebody that's going to obviously miss the mark and not catch the whole, did you miss the loving part, and then focus on, everything that's black and white. I think that they feel it means that they've changed sides or something, and they've crossed the dark side. If they show love to this person or this group of people, it's like acceptance. Which, would it be cool if that was acceptance? I mean, that's kind of where love is supposed to, go. But even if it wasn't acceptance, I'm like willing to know that I don't understand, and I'm willing to.
I think we need to come up with some responses for when we say, what do you think would happen if you loved this person well? And if they would say, well, that would mean that I agree with them and I don't. We need to come up with a response to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. Amy, do you want? I'm going to take us on a sharp turn, and then we're going to be done. Did you have? You've got a look on your face.
Amy always has a look on her face.
That's true. Do you have anything you wanted to say? Because I'm going to ask y'all a completely different question. All right. So, first of all, with Liz and Amy, I mean, being good friends with my wife, y'all like her more than y'all like me, for crying out loud. I need to say there's no other woman involved. Priscilla and I are married. Everything's fine. This thought just popped in my head because I'm constantly, I sometimes, it occurred to me the other day, am I cursed with just constantly thinking weird, deeper stuff? But this one I thought I'm going to write down and I'm going to write down and bring this up in the podcast. So we all know the sort of falling in love feelings, and we all, if we mentored someone younger, we would say, hey, these feelings that you have right now, they're not going to sustain your relationship. You're not always going to feel that way. I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all have been in relationships for a very long time, so that those initial feelings isn't something that is natural forever. And I would go on a limb to the chagrin of my wife, because she is a big time romantic and doesn't like these sorts of things. I would say the sort of way that I felt about Priscilla early on represented a unique time. And even though that was a special time and an awesome time, that belonged to that time. We're in a different stage in our relationship. And I believe the love can go deeper, but I don't even feel like I need to have those crazy butterflies and all that stuff. And I think it can come once in a while or whatever. My question, though, is we talk about infatuation in a negative light. It's like, oh, well, that's just infatuation. What else is the whole falling in love thing? Isn't that infatuation?
100% it is. That's all it is.
That's all it is. So the in love feelings that we celebrate and make such a big deal in the movies and all of that, and the very things that got us all to the person that we're with right now was infatuation.
As long as it's consensual, it is love.
I have a question. Does infatuation automatically mean something that won't last? Is that in the definition?
I don't know.
No, I think he just means that feeling of being sort of obsessed with someone.
Right. I'm just trying to think, like, when you say that was infatuation back in those, honeymoon stages, what's wrong with that? Like, does that mean infatuation can't last, or does that mean infatuation is only for a season?
Well,
and for some it is, and for some it isn't. Everybody's relationships look a little bit, different. They fall in love for different reasons,
Yeah. No, I'm glad you asked that, because I think what spurred this on is I have heard people say something along the lines of, honey, that's not love. You're just infatuated.
Well,
and I'm like, that's what the in love stuff
Well, if you're
is.
a Christian and you're a heterosexual couple and everybody okays it, then that's love.
The definition of infatuation is a intense but short-lived passion. So I think when they say like infatuation, you're talking about it doesn't go past, there's no depth to it. It's just like a fleeting. And I think like that's when like a dude's just like, I kind of want to bang her. Like that's kind of like, I'm infatuated. But if it can go past that,
I'm glad you said that.
I mean, I'm just saying, if it like, I think that when someone's like, boy, you're just infatuated, or girl, you're just infatuated, it's like, this is just a short-lived thing that isn't going to go beyond. Like, open your eyes. Like, especially like if someone is falling for somebody who may be like not the best person for them, and like you can see that so clearly, like, hey, there's a lot of red flags, and they're like, no, this is my person, and you're like, well, no, he's married, so it's probably not your person.
Right. Well, most people have these two things separated, and that's what got me thinking. I think when we say, oh, that's true love, like, look, they're so in love, that is a season of infatuation. And I'm not denigrating it. I think it's beautiful. I'm just saying, I don't think the two are any different.
Well, one is short-lived and one isn't. I mean,
well, but when you're
yeah, but the infatuation can lead you to actually be like, hey, I know I'm infatuated right now, but I'm also getting to know this person so closely because of these feelings, and I'm mentally deciding that I want to be with them. I know these feelings won't. Well, some people don't know, But like, I think you can still decide, hey, I want to be with this person regardless of.
Well,
of these
also
feelings.
infatuation includes, based on the definition, an idealization of someone else. And so we all know at some point that idealization is like gone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, at some point you're going to fart in front of your mate. You're going to, do whatever. Like, when that line is crossed, like, the infatuation is gone. Okay, that's gone.
People get married when they're still in that infatuation window, and then they're married, and then they have to figure it out when the infatuation goes away.
Yeah, when you're like, oh, your shit actually does stink. Like, I have to love you anyway. Ugh.
Alan, you'd get a kick out of this. So, because you've talked to, do you remember Chip Judd? Do you remember some people?
I love Chip Judd.
So he actually, Mark Driscoll. Oh, can I say Mark Driscoll? Like, is that triggering? I'm serious because that was a shitty situation.
I talked to my hairstylist about him today for a while. So
okay, gotcha.
I'm all.
So Mark does this thing on social media where he will take his iPad and he'll watch a clip of a sermon. And so when you're on Instagram, you're watching the sermon, but you're watching Mark Driscoll watch it and react to it. And it was a Chip Judd clip. And Chip sent it to me and he was just like, well, I can't say what Chip said. I'm
so proud of him that he got Mark Driscoll to troll him. That means
no. Unfortunately, Chip was making a really good point, and Driscoll agreed with him. So wasn't as dramatic, but it was
better.
Still
Mark Driscoll
agrees
with Chip, who's almost always right, versus Chip agreeing with Mark.
No.